So, okay, it's being recorded. We're got that now. So, you know, what brought you here? So who you are, whatever. So, you know, since I'll go first. So I'm Kelly Hoey. I'm the author of Build Your Dream Network. I am a limited partner in 2 VC funds, which means I'm like the VC is counting on a startup to make money. I'm counting on the VC to make me money. I make no investment decisions. That was an active choice of mine after being angel investor and startup founder of a startup accelerator. When I went down the path of deciding to write Build Your Dream Network, I was like, yeah, I can't make active investment decisions and do this other thing that does not give service to the entrepreneurs, let alone my portfolio. It doesn't give service to entrepreneurs because I'm just not going to be available, because it's not just behind every check. It's not just the money. It's everything that comes with that. So that's, and you know, my decision to become a limited partner in terms of the funds I just chose to invest in, that was based on, you know, the same thing that, you know, VCs say, you know, you get to know people because, you know, markets change, people don't. Investment theses can change. You know, the thing you decided to invest in could, you know, that market could, because of regulation, whatever else, you know, go sideways. So the funds I invested in are because of people I knew in the startup community for 5 or 6 years before I decided I was going to. And knowing them, that's when I decided to invest in them. So that's my scoop, working on my next book. And yeah, and I went to law school, which means I really hate the Socratic method of calling on people. I used to do that in law school. I still think I'm quite
I also wanted to add that people don't understand that funds are like startups too, because they have LPs to answer to.
Like I'm as the VC is to the startup, the LP is to the VC, because we're looking at them going like, that's nice, but when am I getting paid? Yeah, I'm glad you're doing those things, but where's my return?
Yes, and you have been an investor, so as an investor, you can give advice as well.
Oh yeah, so there's many hats as an angel investor, as an, you know, the thought of with an accelerator, with you know, pitching, all that kind of stuff. So, but I'm just making it clear that, you know, don't pitch me for investment because I don't do that.
Actually could offer advice. So Tia, do you want to introduce yourself?
I was going to say I was not going to do the Socratic method because I get completely, I'm scarred from that from law school, but now that you've started it, but everyone just, after Tia goes, we'll all just, someone raise their hand and go as the next person.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Kelly and KettleSpace, for getting everybody together. So my name is Tia. I'm currently building an entrepreneurship platform for Gen Z, which I think is the most entrepreneurial generation. I also beyond this, I also managing the private investor relationship in a private equity firm in New York. So I love to be here. The reason I want to be here is to want to know more people and just networking with Bonnie and everybody. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tia.
If you're going to have people jumping in, I think it's a little bit harder on Zoom since we're all on mute and people's squares are all in different locations, but I can take the mantle of jumping in. So my name is Abby Sugar, and I am the founder and CEO of Playout Apparel, which is a gender equal shopping ecosystem. We design gender equal apparel, which means we have no men's or women's sections, but encourage people to shop by style, not by gender. And I'm here because I really—
Happy to interrupt. Does this mean like women get equal size pockets?
This means, yes, everything is designed exactly the same, except with bottoms. We have a pouch front or a flat front version, but it's just, I like to describe it as people are different sizes. We do extra small to 5X, and people are different shapes. So if you want a pouch or you don't, everything else is equal, all the colors. It's not like subliminal allocation of gender, pink is for girls, blue is for boys. It's like come shop this. And we're also very focused on Gen Z because 56% of them shop outside of their assigned gender. And they're the most, like Tia was saying also, they're the most values driven sort of, really new, exciting. I think I'm optimistic about societal shifts generation that's coming up. And so we're very future looking. We're currently raising our round. I know, I'm not pitching you. I'm just letting everyone know here in the networking, but I'm always so grateful for Bonnie to hosting these. I really love meeting everyone here. And I'm especially interested, Kelly, in your focus on building community and building networks and authentic connections. So
awesome.
Here.
Awesome. And like for any of the guys, if you really, truly, if you want to know, like the issue of pockets, like seriously find a pair of women's jeans in your size and put them on and put your hand in the front pocket. And you'll be like,
oh, but sometimes it's not even a real pocket. So you can't even put your hand in the front pocket. It is a seam, it's decorative.
Is it me? No, there's no pocket. Or you'll put your hand in and your hand will go down this far. And you'll be like, what's this for? My tiny little like change or like just to hide my fingernails? Anyway, that's why I had to ask the pocket question. Don't even get me on dresses and no pockets. Anyway, thank you, Abby. Who's next?
I'll go next. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Mac. My daughter works at Land's End, so I'll have to ask her about this when she gets home. It never occurred to me. So my name is Victor Lee. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer for a startup called Zage, which is the first first on-demand elder services app. I'm here for a couple of reasons. Number one, I love all Bonnie's and Mac's events. Kelly, I'd heard you speak at an event with Michael Roderick a while back, so I thought I'd see what's new.
Awesome.
We are one of those rarities, which is, unfortunately, we're a female-founded startup, and in the elder care space. And I'm also have developed a networking methodology, which I'm kind of putting out there. So I'm interested to see what kind of tips, tricks, techniques, and the approach that Kelly takes to that topic.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Victor?
I'm happy to go next. I'm Caroline Mccaffrey. Nice to meet you. I am the CEO and co-founder of a company called ClearOps. ClearOps is a privacy and cybersecurity tech startup company. And I also am a corporate lawyer, so I'm really excited to be here and to talk to you and listen about networking. I think my main question for you, if I have one that I can share, is how do you network without always having to give away free services or advice? Not that that's always the case, but it happens quite a lot that people tend to want to network with me because they want advice. I've been a lawyer for 20 plus years. So, and Abby, congratulations on the fundraise. I actually am also fundraising right now too. So it's funny that we're on the same timeline.
Yep. Awesome. Perfect. Who's next?
I waited until it got really awkward, then I jumped in. So it's my name is Munif, and I am the founder of IntegraPitch. IntegraPitch is a platform where we link inventors with CAD and prototype engineers to develop intellectual property and then have it sold. I'm here to build my own dream network. Bonnie is my mentor. We've met through Founder Institute. Yeah, yes. And I'm here also to get inspired. Good to see so many familiar faces. Abby, Victor, Itmar is here too, and awesome. Mac. So, yeah.
Thank you. All right, counting down. Who's going to tell us next who they are? Kira, you turned your camera back on. I'm guessing it's you.
Yes, I turned it off because we have a leak in the bathroom, so the leak's being fixed. Oh. So if you hear the whooshing, it's not because I'm at the beach. I'm still on the Upper East Side, but what are you going to do? My name is Kira, and I am pivoting my business again because I've been working as a practitioner, ghostwriter, content architect, provider, And I want to pivot and do more coaching so that I can have a one-to-many ratio and scale. And that's where I am, long time publishing veteran on the book publishing side. So that is where my experience and passion is. And I've loved working with entrepreneurs on nonfiction to develop their content, their stories, their book proposals, their ideas. And that's what gets me up to do.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
I can go.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Juliana. I'm the VP of Brand and Experience for Tonestone, which is a very new casual musical creativity platform, co-founded by folks who made products like Rock Band and Guitar Hero way back when. It's a novel approach in terms of using game mechanics to help people create music very quickly and not have to use, $300 pieces of software. I'm based in LA, but I worked in the New York startup scene for about 10 years up until
Thank you for getting up so early for us.
I work with a lot of East Coast people, so it was my pleasure to get up early and fairly routine. I wanted to attend just to sort of like flex my networking muscle and from the angle of being relatively new to seed stage startup life. In the past, I've worked for more mature startups. I kind of would love to get the angle of what it means to network on behalf of a company that's quite early and, obviously seeking funding and kind of what to think about from that particular stage of a company's maturity. So thank you for having me. Nice to meet everybody.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I remember hearing an interview with the founder of Zoom, and one of the features he was like thinking like in the future what he wanted to have. And one of the things he said, it would be great if it could have the sense of smell. And I'm like, no. Please, I want to be able to look good and stink, but no, I don't want to have anyway. I think of that a few times. I've had very early, presentations where I've rolled out of bed, brushed my hair, slapped on some lipstick and taken the, fix up my appearance feature on the camera on Zoom and said, this is better work because Stubby. Who's going to go next and tell us who they are and what brought them here today?
I knew Chris Haskell was going to go next.
There we go. Bonnie, thanks for jumping in and inspiring me to speak up either last or second to last here. What's up, y'all? Chris Haskell coming from the good old NYC in the southeast of Manhattan, Alphabet City. I am part of Binks Group. We do consulting, advising, and connecting and small check investing with pre-seed, seed, and Series A companies. We take on projects, we connect people, we do whatever. I'm here just to hear people that are insightful, experienced in that life stage of companies and ready to sponge on some information and hopefully maybe ask some pretend intelligent questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, Tamar, you're up. You're muted right now, but take it away.
They're maybe running around.
Oh, okay.
Abby, other Abby. We've had Abby Sugar. We got another
We have
Abby.
two Abbies again. Other Abby.
Sure, no problem. Sorry about that. I was like putting out some fires via email, so I.
No worries. No worries.
It's lovely to meet everyone. I am working with a co-founder on a DTC home hygiene brand right now, which is a lot of fun. So we're doing the formulation. There's a cool NASA element to it, which we're hoping is going to be interesting for consumers. The focus is to create a more elevated product than what's on the market right now. And we're interested in sort of targeting those people who are focused on prestige skincare and candles. You're seeing a lot of, $120 candles being purchased right now. And skincare, there were 30,000 prestige launches last year alone. 13,000 of them were in stores, and stores were closed for much of the year. So it's very interesting to see the enthusiasm for those categories. And we believe that home well-being can potentially be brought to the same level.
Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, Itmar. Sort of like Bueller.
He's spoken before, but
Bueller. All right, well, we'll jump in. We'll jump in. Okay. Here's what I want to do. Hopefully everyone's got a piece of paper around. Grab that piece of paper. Leave a space at the top to write like what your networking objective, this could be the goal, the outcome, the thing you're looking to achieve. And then I want you to do 3 columns, 3 vertical columns. Or you could do them horizontally if you want, but vertical is good because you're going to go across that way. And the first column, I want you to put who at the top. I want you to put what in the middle column. And I want you to put how in the 3rd column. And so as I blurb here, think about, I know some people are really, I'm gonna say sort of this clarity, but even drilling down further in terms of what your networking need. I truly believe we get things done with the help of other people. So, we solve our problems with the help of others. I am not one who is a believer in the hero's journey. The hero always has friends, fans, followers, family, a whole lot of other people. So someone who said they made it on their own, I call bullshit. Clear and simple, right? So think about what your goal is and kind of scribble that down. One of the things, sort of 2 things I want to talk about with networking, I think there's the noun and the verb. When we think about networking, you say to people, yeah, you need to get out and network. We rush to think about the activity. Oh, what event am I going to attend? What am I going to join? You go into that, right? And then you think, well, if I do that, I might meet the right people who are going to help me with whatever it is I'm doing. You need to flip the equation. You need to start thinking about who is it that I need to connect with. That's the start of your, the real start is what your problem is. Who are the right people to help you with that problem? So who do you need to connect with? So that's going to be our who column. Who do you really need to connect with? And you're going to get like a grocery list. You're not going to be like, oh, I need to go to the grocery store to get food, right? You've got particular things that you need. You're going to write down like particular names, because the what column is, what do you know about them? What do you know about that person? What do you know about that group? What do you know about that accelerator? What do you know about that company? What do you know about them? Because that activity of networking as a generic thing to say to someone, go out and network, that's, Abby, I'm going to go back to you. That's like saying one size fits all. As we know, one size fits none. There is not like, oh, here's how you reach an investor. You send this type of PowerPoint and this type of template outreach, and suddenly they're like an ATM and cash spits out of it. No, everybody is unique. All of you are in the tech space. You all know we want things delivered to us in a personalized, customized, do you understand me AI kind of way. And when we get something that isn't that, what do? We curse at it. We think, well, this is just stupid. This is, broken. We as human beings have to be the best AI to figure out what's my best outreach to this particular person at this particular point in time. So that's why I want you to flip that networking equation. I want you to start with the who. I want you then to think about, what do I know about them? And from that, you figure out how you're going to connect with them. I remember a really funny occasion. It was funny, Bonnie, because it was back in the day when we got together in person. And it was when I was moderating those Meet the Innovator events at the Apple Store in Soho. And one of the guests on the panel at one time was with Erin Newkirk in Red Stamp, but it was with one of her angel investors. They'd exited, and it was Joanne Wilson. And someone came up to me afterwards and said, "Oh my God, Kelly, can you introduce me to Joanne? I really want to talk to her. I really want to." I'm like, she told you precisely during the talk how to reach her and how she liked to be reached. Me rushing you over and introducing was not part of that conversation. She made it very clear what her email was and where to find it. So that's why, who, what do you know about them? And then how, because either people will directly indicate, or you're going to be able to surmise from watching them how they communicate and how they like to be interacted with. Now, this is always the typical reaction. People say, "Kelly, oh, but that's a lot of work." Well, I don't know. You want to send out 50 emails and hope one person listens, and you want to spend the rest of the time stressing out because you're not getting any responses? No, doing the research and sending 5 good emails and getting a response is a hell of a lot better. I think doing the research and then deciding, oh my God, why have I been salivating over this investor? He or she is a fill in the blank of your favorite insulting word. There's no way no way in heck I want to be, getting money from them. It's like the founder who just raised, visibly pregnant with twins. Any investor who questioned her, she was like, didn't let them in the round. $53 million later, who's laughing? So who, what, how? Personalize every outreach. Think about, how would I feel if I received this communication? We think when we receive these things, whether it's through someone we know or someone we don't know, it evokes an emotion. Do I want to help this person? Do they give me an indication that if I don't know them, that they're the type of person that I would like to get to know and help because they have reached out to me in a way that, starts to build that trust. One way to think about this is think about the password reminder prompts for security, that when you forget your password and you have to have a security question. Who was your favorite teacher in 2nd grade, right? We remember these things. What was your favorite car? You're probably thinking, oh, it was this car, my first car. I remember what it was this. And I remember, right? It's around an emotion. I don't think I've ever seen a security password prompt that it equals how much money did you make last year? I've never seen that as a security password prompt for a forgotten password. So it's all about how you make people feel. So there we go. I'm going to take a big old deep breath there, because part of the fun of doing these things for me is, besides standing on the, soapbox of networking and trying to rebrand the way we think and approach all of this. You guys came with some questions. You probably might have some more questions now. So let me, kind of dive into all of this and the particular questions. On the question of people wanting to pick your brain for free advice, remember, people are seeking answers. That doesn't mean you have to give them your time. You can point them to a better source. You can point them to a blog post. You can point to a podcast episode. They want an answer. And I say that because you can imagine I get a lot of those things. Hey, Kelly, and it's like, there's a lot of information. So instead, I take the big deep breath and I'm like, here's where you'll find your answer. Or here are some suggestions. The more specific when you do need someone's time, the better. Because that may be where they say, oh, this isn't just a generic question of, gee, how'd you switch from being a corporate lawyer to starting a company? you know, maybe you've been interviewed on that, or, oh, how did you go from being in publishing to freelancing? But when someone has actually done the research and they come with a really specific question, then you're like, wow, they've really put in the time. The worst question I've ever been asked, someone wanted to talk to me and they're like, you've had a really interesting career and I know I could read about it read up on it online, but maybe you could tell me in your own words. Yeah, that was a short conversation. Better, like you can ask, if the answer, the question you want to ask someone, you find the answer on the blog, now you have the chance to answer, like ask them a better question. It doesn't close the door in connecting with them. You're like, oh, they've answered that question. Now I've got something better to connect with them on. And no, it's not weird that you're reading these things and know these things about people. You know, whether it's an investor, you know, whether it's an influencer, whether it's a CEO of a company, they, you know, they put this information out for a reason. I mean, Bonnie, I mean, you can probably attest to this. I think, you know, Fred Wilson or Joanne Wilson's probably got other things to do with their time than blogging. I think they like to share their opinions and like people to read them. So,
Sorry.
So it's on that one of like, and for all of you, because someone may say, hey, let's talk about, you know, starting a sustainable, you know, sustainable, you know, clothing company, or let's start talking about, you know, how you get a book published and whatever else, like being able to say, right, here's where the resources are, here's where you can ask that when you get through that information. Melissa Gonzalez, who founded the Lioness Group and who's really is expert in immersive retail brand activation, pop-up, all of that. That's why part of the reason why she self-published a book, as she said at the time, best $15,000 of business development she ever did, because everyone wanting to pick her brains on pop-ups, because she wrote the book, it's got to be close to a decade ago, maybe it's a little less than that. You know, people want to pick her brain over coffee on how to do a pop-up. So she's like, here, buy the book. There's the cost of the coffee. After you read it, if you've got a question, let me know. So there we go on all of that kind of stuff. So hopefully that answers that question. On early stage, like networking as you're in an early stage company, several thoughts on this. And Juliana, tell me, how many people work for the company at this time?
We're about, I would say, 10 full-time people, and then a handful of, you know, support team folks in various capacities.
Cool. So one of the first things I'd say is, you know, because let's all admit it, even before the pandemic, you hear about a company or you hear, you learn about someone who works something. What do? We hit Google to find out more about them. And I had this situation with it was actually a New Zealand skincare brand for Other Abbey. And I found with their very small company that there was about 6 different descriptions of what they did on people's online profiles. And an early stage company in terms of networking and building brand awareness, like these things are the same friggin' funnel as far as I'm concerned. In terms of finding your next employee, like, is everyone, like, are you using every networking tool at your disposal? And that means, like, does everybody hold themselves out in the same way? So there's not this inconsistency that someone's described on their LinkedIn profile, the company this way, and someone else describes it this way. You know, first, you know, sort of confusion in the market, but then if you meet someone, they're like, don't I know someone at your company? And I thought they did this because I read this. Like, let's have some, you know, consistency in that kind of one. I also think at this stage, this is where events like this one, networking with your peers and finding out what they're finding valuable. What are the meetups? What are the events? What are they attending? First of all, it's a great conversation with them. If you see they've signed up for something, say, hey, I see you attend a lot of, you know, the startup one-stop events. What do they like? What happens? Why do you find it worthwhile? Before I ever sign up for something, I'm literally like I'm 2-year-old. Why? Why? So, ask that. Tell me more about it. Why do you go? What's useful? Because you also need to figure out when someone said, oh my God, Juliana, this is the thing you need to do to network, at this stage with your company. If we think about networking, the old way, we'd immediately go and register because this friend of ours, this person we met, was so enthusiastic about whatever the event was. And you need to kind of go pause and say, tell me more. Because you may then discover, oh, they love it because their best friend is the president and they always get free tickets. Right? What you don't know. Or they may say, well, this is why, then this is the ethos of the group. Well, how long have you been a member? Right? So you say you're joining a group for business development. They're like, oh, I get all this business. Well, how long have you been a member? When did you start getting business? And they're like, oh, well, I've been a member for 10 years. I started really getting some business a year ago. And you're like, okay, this is a long-term commitment. Does that fit within where I am right now? Because it may not. And then you can say, you know what, this sounds worthwhile, but I got to shelf this over here at the moment because that's a different time commitment to what I'm doing myself. So thinking about that, find as many situations to hang with your peers. I often think, in particular in the startup community, where, network, if we want to sort of put the networking mindset of we're networking up the food chain and we think some gray-haired fool at the top is the one who's going to, anoint us and, sprinkle the networking magic unicorn dust on us. It's more likely to be someone through your peer, like a peer network, who's going to connect you into the right people. Because the whole community is based on trust. And I see you there, Abby, I'm getting right there. But so an investor, if they don't know you, hearing about you from someone, but the networks that they trust the most is hearing from your peers. One of your peers saying, oh my God, the team at this startup, they are working their butts off. I'm incredibly impressed with them. That's when an investor's like, I want to know more about them. Like if a peer in the community is like enthusiastic about them, all right, there's got to be something here, as opposed to me rushing in saying, hey, Chris Freilich, I'm at the startup. They're really great. You want to talk to them? It doesn't carry the same weight. And that's that. So those are two things that immediately come to mind is get the team all on board, describing themselves, because at this stage, everyone in a 10 to 14 person company, everyone's marketing, everyone's building networks, that investor, that next hire, that next piece of business could come from anyone. And it could be the neighbor of the developer who doesn't think networking or recruiting or business development is their job. But just by how they talk about the company and what's on their social profile, who knows what you'll unlock. Abby.
I was just going to say exactly what you were talking about like being in an ecosystem or a network of other startups. That's how YC has pivoted and been presenting themselves a little bit recently in terms of it's not just us as the accelerator. It's not our name, right, on your startup cap table. Right. It's the other people, like whether it's 20 other startups or 200 other startups since things have gone virtual, that they all have their businesses they're doing business to business you can use, but also networking with them. And so having those cheerleaders that truly know what you're doing. And I come from, an arts background and, in colleges, if you're in art school, not everyone is going to be selling their painting for $5 million or whatever, but those other people you're in school with are going to own the galleries. They're going to be the writers talking about you and writing about your artwork. So I really love what you said about that network. And also, whenever you're part of something, I do feel like you get out as much that you put in. And so you really need to ask the question of how much bandwidth you have and why someone likes something, because maybe it's not a right fit for you. You don't have the bandwidth to put into that to really get out what the other person is getting out of it.
Right, it might be you gotta put it on hold for a while, and that absolutely works. But too many people sort of think, oh, well, I gotta go after the big fish. But to get to the big fish, like you gotta be the team player with the little fish, you know, you gotta help others. And the information you have that can help them and vice versa. You know, someone comes to me and says, oh, you know, emails me and oh, we got a mutual connection that's so and so. And if it is so and so is someone I know well, I'm going to ask them about them. Tell me about this person. Even if they haven't made the, you know, asked to make that connection, I'm going to be like, tell me about so and so. And if they're that person was back to me and said, well, I don't know them that well, and every time I've talked to them, they've been a bit. I'm like, there we go. That person close to me. I mean, I saw it so many times when we had. This is sort of back, you know, 2011, 2012, when I was 2013, when I was so immersed in startup community events, and the number of times startups would give really short thrift to the analysts and the associates like VC firms. And I'm like, there's a reason first round sends their associate to events, because the partners don't want to go to all those events. And at that Monday morning meeting, who's presenting some interesting startups they've met? It's not, you know, the named partner. It's the punk who's been at the events. And the number of startups who were like rude to the associates of VC firms, I'm like, what are you doing? Chopped your, you know, chances off at the knees. Bonnie's like,
No, they don't realize that those are the gatekeepers. Everything gets vetted by the associates first. Associates are very important.
So it's like, yeah, be sort of be careful who you piss off. So all of that, all of that kind of stuff. Thinking, Kira, your question sort of pivot to coaching to scale is, you know, this is fantastic. And thinking about, all right, what is the common things that people have been asking you for? How can you now do that in a one-to-many environment? What is the one-to-many environment that you want? What is the aspects of the working one-on-one that you love? That how do you incorporate that into a one-to-many? You know, so many people think, oh, I'll just go from one-to-one to an online course, but actually, what's the aspect of the one-on-one that you still want to have that tangible element in a one-to-many kind of, you know, atmosphere? And I would actually say, you know, kind of test the waters on a few things, because we're just we're just in such an interesting time where there is part of an audience that is really hungry for engagement, but we're not getting away from this. This is now going to be a mainstay of interactions. It also increasingly, I've always sort of said I love the internet because it can democratize access, you know, assuming everybody all has equal Wi-Fi access, and that's a different conversation and different day and different time, and socioeconomic and all the rest of that kind of stuff. So you sort of think, oh, right. I may not just want to toss my content and put it behind a paywall and people can take a course, but how do I make something that really is, when we think about hybrid events, how do I make a model that goes one to many that still involves this much more human touch? Because it's just like really, really critical on that. So, so there is that, and you know, mull away in terms of what more we can talk about on that. Raising money. You know what? This is like, make your priority list. Understand every fund and where they are in their funding cycle. Because you may do your research and decide a fund is the top of your list, and then you find out that their 5 years into their current fund and they're raising a new fund, which probably means they're not going to be right, or they're 4 years into their current fund and they're going to be raising in the next year, probably means they don't have a lot of capacity to write new checks because they're keeping some for the investments they've already got. You not only need to understand it's why are you a great match for them, but why are they a good match for you? And the timing issue may be off. A friend of mine who's a fund raising her next fund is going through exactly this. Her ideal anchor investors, like, I'm out of cash. Like allocated my investment for this cycle to institutional investor, you know? Like, if you want to talk next year, and she's like, so she's like, yeah, if I get this guy as the lead investor, everybody else is going to fall in line because he moves the market. He's got no cash. So you need to understand that, right? So you, and create your, priority list, like sending, I don't know who they're doing it through, Angel List or whatever. People are just sending spray and pray, kind of like, hey, I can meet with you on Tuesday. Here's our deck. If that like if you think that's a useful use of time because you can rapidly do that, I'm going to tell you right now, it's an absolute freaking waste of time. Create your target list. Figure out how you can meet, like how you can possibly know these people. Right? What do you know about them? What rocks their world? How do they like to be communicated with? There was a, back to the Apple Store back in the day, there was a panel I did with, was highly amusing actually at the time, panel with VCs to talk about investment. And the number of men who reached out to me and said, is this a women's event? I said, what made you think that? The only investors I had on the panel were women. And I was like, did it say anywhere that we were going to talk about breastfeeding and being a VC? I did not see that, no. And the panelists, all we did was talk about their investment thesis and how they invest. But each of them clearly said, here's what I want in a first meeting. Here's what I want in a deck. Here's, I don't want this. If you come to a meeting with a deck, I'm going to tell you, I remember Kathleen, who was it, Kathleen, why am I forgetting her last name?
O'Neill?
From Comcast. Who used to be at Comcast.
I know her.
Yes. So she's like, oh, come to a meeting with a deck. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm putting the deck aside. I'm going to talk to you. Who are you? What's your deal? Right? That's great information. You can get the meeting right and not piss someone off, right? And that's critical because you want to create a bond. You want to be heard. And the way to be heard is how does the other person see and listen? So in terms of create your price, like who are your top 5 investors you're going after? And some of those people may pop down the list because you find out they have no capacity to invest, or they're in the middle of a fundraise, so I got to put off, or they're going to be fundraising. And by the way, all of this, who your list is, you start doing this well before you're raising.
Kathleen, you checked.
The investors are not ATMs. They're in this for relationships because you're getting, not only are they getting in bed with you, you're getting in bed with them for the next, what, 8 to 12 years? I remember a panel seeing Mark Suster, he was moderating a panel with a bunch of other VCs, and he said, in all early stage, and he said, how long are you holding, investments? That early stage for till an exit, like, people making that first investment piece. And they're like, probably 9 to 13 years was kind of the average. And I was like, thank you. So this idea of, oh, I'll get an investment and I'll exit. No, you're getting in bed with someone for a long time. So you really need to understand it's not just the money. What's their network? What's their personality? How are they going to help? And they want to know that about you because the market can change. Remember that great story you mentioned, Y Combinator? They welcomed in the guys who founded Airbnb, but at the time it wasn't Airbnb. It was some other idea. And YC looked at them and said, we like you guys, but this idea kind of sucks. Go in a room and come up with something else. And they came up with Airbnb. So it's about you. So they don't get to know from a pretty PowerPoint. They get to know you over time and trust you. So the more trust points that you create, the more that you have peers in the community or people from your past life. Pretty much everybody's got some connection in somehow. You know, it's something in early stage in all likelihood. And even if you're like, but I'm new to New York, well, what market are you coming from? Remember a fellow who was an Israeli startup, you know, moved from Israel to New York. He's like, I don't know anyone. I'm like, really? Israel doesn't have a startup community that you were involved in before? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, well, why don't you? We'll pause for a breath for a second. What we got? What we got? Bonnie, what are you thinking?
Oh, you know, I was just thinking that, you know, I tell people, because I do work with, I call them newcos now. I don't call them startups, because when they see themselves as startups, they think everything is free.
Well, that's a good one. Well, you know, as I go with the definition of startup from Jeffrey Silverman, like, you know, startup is a company in search of a recurring, you know, form of income. If you figured out what your income stream is, you're not a startup. Now, you may be a very financially poor company, but you're not a startup. You figured out how you have a recurring form of income, then you're not a startup.
That's why I prefer newco, because it's a company, it's a business. I want them to keep that in mind.
Right, new company or emerging tech company, exactly. If you figured out your revenue model, you're not a startup.
Yes. But I don't even use the word startup anymore. You know, I was going to say that when I work with entrepreneurs, which I do, and get paid for that, I always tell them, you know, we always find investors who invest in your space, and I never, yes, make your wish list, but start with the person who's least likely to write the check, and practice and see and get their feedback, because they still may be the subject matter expert or the vertical expert. Get their feedback. They will give you invaluable information. And do office hours. A lot of investors do office hours. People talk about networking.
Well, it's a good way to get feedback on what you're doing, and it's a good way to start building relationships. And exactly like mentioned Jeffrey Silverman, Laconia, Laconia, and I know David Arcana had done one of these investor breakfasts in the past. They hold office hours for startups in any space.
Yep.
You know, they do enterprise B2B. They only invest in stuff that, you know, is, I'm going to say Eastern Seaboard. If it's not on the Amtrak corridor, basically they're not there. It doesn't matter how great the startup is, even if it fits their investment thesis, they're not investing. But they do office hours for anyone in the startup community. You just go to their website and request it. And these are seasoned, experienced investors. They're fabulous. And so, you know, take advantage of those things, because they also network with other investors, and they may say, whoa, you should know this person. Like, I met this founder came in and completely not what we do, but this person has some really good stuff, and I like them. And guess what? Let me tell you right now, here's the thing. You meet these people and I say this, it's like, oh, that's great, Kelly, we go and do this thing with Laconia. What next? Number one, and I'm friggin' mean this, number one networking mistake is the failure to follow up. Okay, and I'm not talking the mismanners. Hey, thank you, Laconia, for letting me come talk to you at office hours. I found it really helpful. Like, that's just human decency and common courtesy. The follow-up is getting back to them a month later and saying, you know what advice you gave? Damn, it was good. And you know what, I'm going to make another appointment so I can tell you what actually happened, but here's what I did with your advice. Or you told me to look into this and I did, and here's what's going on. Or if you say, thank you, you recommended I reach out to so-and-so and use your name. I haven't heard from them. Any suggestions, or do you know anything? Because I don't want to be like another one of those annoying founders who's like pestering someone all the time. And all of those things, like, if you course correct that, it's so immensely easy to course correct in your networking. If you do that, you're now really on like the path to building a relationship as opposed to just having a transactional, nice one-on-one. We had a like little chat because they hold office hours. Now this person's in your corner. You're also probably thinking that, Kelly, if I'm networking with, you know, these VCs who hold office hours, like, what do I do for them? There's your networking give. You acknowledge the advice. You tell them what you did with it. You let them know if the advice they gave was decent. Maybe they referred you to so-and-so because so-and-so owes them a favor or two. And they're like, whoa, you know, I need to know if so-and-so, someone in my network who I've held in high esteem, I need to know if they're a jerk. I'm only going to know that if you tell me. So that, if you're thinking, oh my God, these people are doing things for me, that's another part of this whole networking world that you need to really flush down the toilet and forget about. At this stage, your networking give to someone else who appears to have more resources than you have right now. Be responsive, respect their time, respect their reputation, respect their relationships, and keep them in the loop. Easy peasy. Really easy. Like someone makes an introduction for you, you don't necessarily have to make an introduction for them. You just need to keep them in the loop. Some point in the future, you might have something fabulous and you want to do for them because it might come to you. So it did for an intern of mine 4 years later. She's like, hey, would you like to? And I'm like, yes, thank you, Abby. That would be fabulous. Yes, and her name was Abby. I'm just not using Abby because there's a lot of Abby's here. But you don't have, doesn't have to be the transaction in the moment. It's like you want to build this long term. You want to build a dream network. As I like to joke and say, it's not, oh, let's make networking a dream. That's not the title of my book. How do you build this net of relationships that are people are responsive? So let me take another breath there so I can hydrate. I know there's stuff in the chat. I haven't looked at it. Bonnie, let me know if there's anything there I should be responding to.
People have been direct messaging. Does anybody have a question or a comment that they want to make or a concern or, you know, about any platform? Because I know a lot of you are on Clubhouse now and on other platforms, and maybe you have networking questions about those too. And I know Kelly is also on those platforms.
Yeah, I mean, some of these things like Clubhouse are great because, you know, you think some people's social media accounts, they may be having someone else do them. They may be being very, you know, building my personal brand types that they're censoring their words. Funny, it's harder to do that on Clubhouse, isn't it?
I love that.
I mean, one of the great, I mean, we sort of always think about with networking, we're always thinking about what we're going to say as opposed to what we're going to watch and listen. And Clubhouse in particular is a great one. Just, you know, go be a fly on the wall. What does this person say? What do they do? And, you know, so many times I think people like jump up to get on stage to talk rather than let me listen. And guess what? I can now reach out after that Clubhouse talk and say, well, that was interesting. And this person asked you this very interesting question and I appreciated your answer. And by the way, here's what I would know after thinking about everything you'd said. Boy, you know, something like, who wouldn't want someone to say to them, you listened to me and thought about my advice. Wow. Even that makes you stand out. So, but yeah, that big networking snake, the follow up or the follow through. Just a funny story. So one of the case studies in my book, woman by the name of Allison Levine, Allison's rather accomplished. She's a member of a I want to say a club that probably no one here will be ever admitted to, because there's only around 40 people who are members of it. And it's the Adventurers Grand Slam Club, because you have to climb to the highest peak on every continent and ski to the North and the South Pole. And unless you do those things, you're not admitted into the club. So, and Allison led the first all-US women's team of Everest. Anyway. When she got like, what's your biggest networking pet peeve? Okay, beyond people not doing a double-blind introduction, the failure to follow up she went so crazy in her answer that I had to call her and I'm like, Allie, I need to edit your answer on this one. Otherwise my book is coming in brown paper wrapper with a parental warning because of the language. Oh, lost her nut. Like, people want to help other people. Make it easy for us to help you and make it easy for us to want to help you repeatedly. And you do that by following up. You do that by, you know, having that understanding of, oh, what's going on in that person's life? Gee, they're traveling all the time. This is back in the day. Take Allison as an example. She's traveling all the time. She's in a lot of airports. She probably doesn't have time to meet for coffee. Oh, she's interviewed a lot. She's done a lot of podcasts. Why don't I listen to those? I might find my answer. Boy, she's written a book. Maybe the answer's in there. Didn't find the answer. Then you reach out to her and you let her know, I've read all these things. I couldn't find the answer to this question. I can't, knowing Allison, I know how thrilled she'd be with that kind of email. But yeah, whenever, and I'm going to tell stories when she gets the other type of, you know, hey, you two should know each other. Someone wants to meet her for coffee. Yeah, I usually get the email forwarded to me with Allison on a profanity laced rant. And it, you know, what? I've known Allison since 2009, still causes me to cackle hilariously. You know, how irritated she still gets by people doing this. Anyhow.
I was going to say we have a few latecomers to the room if they'd like to introduce themselves. Waleed?
Tell us who you are, what your startup is, and or your new co.
Yeah,
anyone who's joined, and just so you meet the other people, so we can all know. Because guess what, there might be someone, or if you're multitasking, you know, put it in the chat. Let us know. But the folks who've been here from the beginning, other questions, stuff. Let's now more on how I can help you, how we can help you in the remaining time we have together. Because yeah, go for it, Abby.
I'll ask a question, just because we're talking about sort of establishing genuine listening and rapport with someone, and also things like going to networking events or on social media, on Clubhouse, virtual ones just like this. How do you find a balance of your time between sort of connecting with people and building that net, as we've been talking about, and asking or targeting those people that, you know, you're on a specific mission for?
Right. Well, I mean, this is where I was saying, so the benefit of the internet age is that you can get a lot more information on someone, right? To customize and personalize an outreach. You have a lot more touch points to get to know someone, in the sense that, you know, you sort of think back in the day that someone would talk about the 7 touch points to a sale. Meet for coffee, meet for coffee, meet for lunch, meet for lunch, meet for lunch, meet for coffee, meet for dinner, one more time over drinks. Yay, now I can pitch you, right? I don't know about you, I'm exhausted thinking about it. And I would say that pre-pandemic. Instead, now you can follow, you can retweet, you can post, you can like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. But the more you know about the other person, that can accelerate, you know, how and when you ask. Right? You know and understand the industry, that could accelerate an ask. So let me give an example. Yes, pulled from here. And it's Jessica Pell that you love, who is now raising her own fund. And this is back when she was the story in here, and this is her cold email outreach. And I swear to God, page 59 for those reading along, her cold outreach from when she was coming out of college and looking for a job in New York and knew no one. It is the formula for cold outreach at any point. You just follow her formula, because she still uses it. And what she was doing at the time was, she was like, okay, here's the who I need to connect with. What do I know about them? And so she was trying to connect with, like, kind of get like the Mad Men agency job. She knew no one in New York. She was, you know, in school in Indianapolis, and she thought she was going to be working in Chicago. Oops, that didn't happen. Job offer fell through in Chicago, and she's like, screw you, Chicago, I'm going to New York. What did she know about this? So this was, you know, back when she was this, just after sort of the years after 9/11. So we're talking like 2002, 2003, 2004 in there. So LinkedIn, these sort of online sources weren't as robust as they are now. So she's getting like Ad Age. She's going and reading Ad Age. What's going on in the market? When, because she was like, my need is to get a job. When is it an agency's need to hire me? And she started looking for that, pinpoint that problem. So in terms of some of this stuff, like, you know, in terms of when do you pitch them, when does what I have align with somebody else's need? And you may go for the jugular, so to speak, really fast when you see, oh, market alignment, boom, it's right there and it's happening. So what she discovered, and this is how like minute she got, she like knew the ad agencies hired new people when a client account moved agencies. And she watched for that. And when she saw that happen, she would then customize her cover letter and she would fire it off. Congratulations on winning the new account. Here's and how her skills would relate to that particular client. Boom. And at a time when no one was hiring, she got multiple job offers. Multiple. So that's the formula. So it may, so it's an awesome question now because it's the one everyone hates. It depends. But that's why getting that list of who are you connecting with, right? Truly understanding like the market you are both in. Because it may be, you're like, I know we've just met, but I just saw this and I know you have a real problem. Not a pretend problem in the problem statement way that pitch decks have, you know, in pitch competitions, you know, it's a big market because this is how many people are buying this product and it's expected to grow. No, what is their particular problem? Oh, you just had a massive security breach. Oh, I see you got, oh, I see you've had, you know, gender isolated shopping and you want to attract Gen Z and your profits are down and you have no R&D department. Hello, I am here as your solution, right? But you need to know that industry and get like psycho on that because that's when people will hear you. All right, hopefully that helps. But yeah, Jessica, like she lays it out.
Amazing, thank you.
You're welcome. What else? Thank you, Abby, for that. I appreciate it. Who else? Who else? Otherwise, you know, they're going to get this recording of me just doing this.
I have a little bit of, I would say, a point of view more than a question, maybe. In times of, or for personalities just like mine, for example, where we work for attraction more than chasing in a way. So, you know, hating to be in everywhere, but also wanting to have that vibe of attraction or being able to stand out easily. How would you advise, you know, people like me or such personalities to be presented or how to connect with other people?
When you say that, are you suggesting that maybe you're not a big outgoing personality? Is this what you're hinting at?
Outgoing, yes, but in terms of asking might not be as much.
Yeah. Oh, and I think this is where I would suggest being open and leaning into conversations when people say, "What are you up to? How are you doing? What's going on?" "Oh, things are great. Thanks for asking," right? Like we really use that as just a very superficial, like fluff of a conversation. And we don't need to delve into a, like a Facebook rant of everything that's wrong in our lives or everything that's right in our lives. But to be able to look at someone and when they ask that, "Hey, how's it going?" You know what, this has been really challenging. But the team is getting to the end of it. And someone's like, "Well, what are you talking about?" "Well, we had this bug," right? Well, like whatever it is, right? Or, "You know what? Patted myself on the back this week. Thanks for asking. I'm patting myself on the back. You made your win." Struggling this with like, lean into those conversations both ways. I'm going to give you a ridiculous example of this. And it was, back to the attorney thing. It was a woman who had gone back into the workforce, working for a small firm, but it's a Saturday. She's like pruning her roses in the suburbs of New Jersey. Her neighbor comes out. He's an executive at a pharmaceutical company. He's like, "Hey, how are you? You know, how's it going?" She's like, "Wow, it's been like good to see you." And she's like, "It's really good." He goes, "Tell me about it." He's probably going somewhere, car keys in hand. But instead of going, "Oh, I'm glad it's going well. Oh, thanks for asking. How are the kids?" Right? Instead of that, she starts talking about her place of work. Like she's like, "The team is really great, and I'm really inspired by the way they do this." She actually starts talking in like a substantial way, and he can see her genuine enthusiasm. So he stops and he says, "You know what? We got this little matter. And I know it's going to matter for you going into this small firm that you bring in work. So let me help you out because I know you, my neighbor." And, he said, "We got this little matter. It's not going to go anywhere. But let me send this over to you, like as a new client and a new file, like at this firm, just as a goodwill, so that these partners see that you are like going to be an income source." And she's like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. The neighbor you known for years." The little matter that he sent over, I crack up at this point every time. It was a silicone breast implant litigation. A pharmaceutical company thought it would go away. It was the largest class action of its time. If they had just had the neighborly fluff conversation. But don't be afraid of, and whoever, like, "Hey, what do you do?" I mean, I remember another woman telling me she was in a taxi, like going to the airport in Omaha or something, coming from a conference. And the taxi driver's like, are you going on vacation? Are you flying home? What are you doing?" She's like, no, we're heading home. We're just here for a conference." He goes, "What do you do?" And the woman starts to talk about her startup. And her husband is like, "The taxi driver does not care about women and menopause." Like seriously, like he was like, "Dude," she had like some menopause, related startup, Nuco app, whatever it was. The taxi driver said, "Oh, I should get your card. My wife is a gynecologist. We make assumptions. We shy away. We're seeking meaningful engagements with people, but we're failing to have them." So that's what I would say, is to be able to like have those conversations with people. The other thing I'd say in terms of like, when you think about, the internet and what people find and the fact that people are going to Google you, I still go back to comments from venture capitalists, and I would doubt that it would have changed. The ones that I know and respect, they want to see founders that are focused on building their companies. They want to see founders who are delving into the problems. The founders who are out there building their personal brand and being interviewed everywhere as being a founder, it's like, who's watching the store? You should be, you know, sharing the stuff that relates to your industry, like showing yourself as a subject matter expertise in what you're in. And the way you are building a, you know, say you're a subject matter expertise in, you know, Gen Z and clothing. I'm subject matter expertise in cybersecurity. I'm a subject matter expertise in whatever. And the way I happen to, you know, have a career or profession or business around it, like, but the thing is this, my business is not being a founder. And I remember, I think it was in PitchBook when they sent out, I think it was PitchBook, they sent out an email and I remember the comment, it was in the sort of the founder's like little email blurb. He had turned to a venture capitalist and he said, hey, what company in your portfolio are you most concerned about in terms of its health and life and whatever else? And the VC said, the one where the founder's writing a book about being a founder. Totally the wrong motivation. So this is also too, you know, when you think about, all right, what am I sharing? What are people asking me to do? You know, like I'm not going to be, you know, wait until the day, and I particularly say this for the women, wait until the day that you've, you know, had the measure of success to be on the panel to talk about what it's like to be a woman in the space. Instead, get yourself on the media and the conversations where you're talking about the space you're in. And that's the muscle you're flexing. Because you want to be known for that expertise. And anyway, I hope that helps in terms of thinking about these things. But I really encourage, lean into those. When someone says, how are you doing? Right? Every week, you know, probably everyone has their end of the week routine of like, what do I need to do next week? Like, put on there, all right. If someone was to say, how are you doing? I need to come up with one of three things that I can share with them. I'm doing okay, but I could really use help with. Or this is what I was up to and I want to celebrate it and this is the way I'm going to share it with people. Like, have those things that you need help with that are that really specific so that that other person connects with you on that human level.
You know, I always keep these rooms small so that everybody can participate and ask their questions because you don't know who else is in the room. And we do the same thing on Clubhouse as well. And I always have people introduce themselves. And, you know, we have our Clubhouse rooms 9 o'clock every Wednesday morning. And there was this one fellow there in the room. And I had an investor friend there as well. Just, he asked if he can come. Yeah, fine. So anyway, so he wouldn't speak up. And finally he did speak up. And he said, I'm not looking for investment yet. You know, I'm still building and blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, what are you having problems with? And he was in the fashion space. They said, so he spelled out his problems. It turns out that somebody else in the room is very well known in the fashion tech world and reached out and is helping him. So always speak up. It's just what you said. You don't know who's in the room. You don't know who, it was a game changer for him. Always speak up.
It's like, have, and being really specific. I remember a Creative Mornings event I did on, and it was, you know, come and talk about networking, Kelly. And so someone asked a question that was in the chat. They said, how do you network in a new city? And I had to ask a question back to the question. I said, what city are you in? And I'm sorry, I don't have well, first of all, you know, giving a generic answer, how you network in New York versus how you network in Chicago versus how you network in Vancouver, you know, whatever kind of thing, right? She said, San Diego. And then I just sat there and watched the comments. I'm in San Diego. Hey, here's my email. I'm in San Diego. Oh, hey, I can help you. I just moved to San Diego too. And I'm like, my job is done. You know, there's also too, like we're always afraid of being very specific. Get hyper granular. Like go think of, you know, a target for, you know, I'll say darts, you know, but think of like, go for the bullseye with your question. Not, wow. Keep it vague, right? Because no, vague, you'll get a vague answer. Boom, go for the, but also too, if you go for the bullseye, they can go, oh, okay, you really want to connect with someone at fill in the blank. You know, I am in the travel space. I really need to connect with someone at American Airlines because they've got these problems, and you'd be like, I don't know anyone at American Airlines, but I know someone really well at Delta. Would you like that introduction? Well, hell yeah, that would be terrific. Help somebody else who's, busy and scattered, and, help them narrow their brain down on what it is that you want by being like hyper specific.
And MJ has Tommy Michelle has a question. She has her hand raised.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Bonnie. Hey, I'm Tommy Jenkins, and I've had some experience in the tech world, in the tech community world, with events, finance. I'm currently pursuing an interest in AI and deep learning, and I am just starting out with maybe a dating app startup. But I was briefly an associate at a small family office looking at tech. So I think my community and maybe a little bit of my finance work gives me a unique perspective. What I noticed about you, which I really found very helpful, Kelly, is that all of your answers seem not only well-informed, but you seem to have a very balanced perspective. All of your answers seem to have a prioritization to them. You give the reasoning rather than, I find that there are many talented people in the startup world that when they give advice, it's very good, but it seems to be a rule that they came up with after the fact, which is not easily applicable to perhaps my situation, right? And they're very talented, but they don't have a sense of perspective to their response. So your answers are very full, and it makes it very easy for me to apply them because the logic is fully thought out. So thank you for that. And thanks, Bonnie, for having great speakers. So my question is, if you're in a situation like perhaps I've been in the past where you're doing a somewhat good job communicating what you're doing, a lot of people know about it, and you might be really busy with an internal issue with your company, or you're really sort of frazzled because everybody thinks that whatever you're doing sort of fits what they have in mind and they're interested in it. So it's just either confusing in a macro sense or a micro sense. There's a lot going on. Maybe you haven't like totally honed your message about what you do, so you have maybe too much interest. So I'm wondering, like, how do you keep that sense of perspective when you're in that really busy situation, or when you're in the middle of funding, or any time where it's easy to get things confused? How do you like sort of anchor yourself in? It's a very vague question, I know, I'm sorry, but what do you do to center yourself like in the middle of the storm, so to speak? Yeah.
Yeah. That's an awesome question. This is when I hope that you have, the trusted sounding board of people that you can reach out to. This is where you're like, when I think about it, why new companies need a board of advisors and a board of advisors early. And it's not like, oh, these people love me. It's like, what the hell does your new company need? Recruit your board of advisors around what the needs of the company are, and find people who will deliver, so that there are the people you can turn to and go, okay, there's a lot of interest, but I'm also getting this feedback. Can you, I need someone who can. You need to find people who are going to take that call or that email or that text at any hour of the day. Or you need people who are going to reach out and say, what's going on? You've been busy. Like some of the people you're connecting with are connected in. They might be hearing things, or they might be like, she usually posts something by this time of the day, and I haven't seen a post in 5 days. What's going on, right? You want people who are also that intuitive. You need people who can put some of this stuff in perspective, because even with your experience, you're going to get whipsawed around. Someone's going to say, oh, your pitch is perfect. I understand completely. And then the next person's like, I have no idea what you're doing.
Right. Yeah. Big problem is sort of if you have a very unique vision or there are lots of different parts to it, like it becomes sort of interpretable, and it's hard to sort of fix that message.
Right.
So,
So like to be able to say to someone, here's the two conflicting things I'm getting, like to have someone say, how do we clarify this?
that's a very talented board member though. It's like very intuitive and an operator, right?
But it's multiple people. Like you got to think, like literally go down, think like what are but and if they're not a board, like an advisory board member for you, then like, all right, who are the people I've got who I can call on these things? You don't want to get yourself into a situation that you've got yourself so isolated. You need to have that support community around you. And this is also why I say to people, when they think about, oh, networking and networks, I'm like, networking is every single human interaction. How you show up every day for your network matters more than how you show up once. Because if you have, I'm going to use the word, if you have been a douche for the last 20 years of my career and you show up once very nicely, I still think you're a douche. Real simple. So this is why I'm like, where do you have these relationships? Because, because of your variety of careers, because of people whose either their problem-solving skills or their experience. Some people you just, you respect their judgment, that you could say to them, this isn't your area, but I really have always respected the way you handle things. This is the situation I'm in right now, and I could really benefit from your perspective. And just be able to say, all right, I'm feeling this way, or I'm having this problem. Who in my network can I call? Who would make the time to give me some sage advice? I have a friend down in Philadelphia who does this quite frequently. She'll send me things, and she's like, Kelly, what do I do? And I'm like, oh, that's the type of email you just ignore. You don't answer that. That person that you don't know who's just asked you to open up their network for everyone else for an event that you're not part of, and that they didn't answer your email asking for some clarification. Oh no, that's the one you don't need to respond. Okay, you just hit delete and then put them on block. That's what you do, right? So you might just need someone else to give you. There might be someone who just you respect, and you just need them to give you permission to do something,
right?
To quiet this thing down. But think about who you've got and have, even if it's a visual behind your computer that you're like, oh God, I'm going into this mode again. All right, I'm calling them. What would their advice to me be? If I can't call them, what's their advice?
Right.
And just remember this sort of like pile of problems you have, like one at a time. It was an amazing interview I listened to. It was funny. These guys who wanted to have me on their podcast, and they said, if you listen to one episode of our podcast before, you come on, I said, which one should I listen to? And they said, well, we recommend this one. And then I got on the podcast with these two guys, and I was like, son of a bitch, why do you have me on this? They had this guy who, sophomore year, busted his neck in a hit in football, paralyzed, 92% chance of not walking again. You know where this guy is going. Kid walks again. I'm thinking, oh, now you're having me to talk about this? Great. Let's feel like chump change. Anyway, he made this comment that I think particularly for founders, but I also think particularly for female founders. He made we can focus on all the rocks that create the mountain to lead to the peak where we can focus on all the rocks and problems and miss, where we're headed. Focus on where you're going. And these problems, don't ignore them all, but if you fixate on all of them all, that's when it becomes overwhelming and we spend more time thinking about it as opposed to, how am I going to solve this? And how we solve things is with the help of other people. So that's why I'm like, who's your crowd? Who's your community? And if they're not officially on your board of advisors, that's okay. They're people who because of your past work relationships, performance. You can just kind of go, you know what? I can reach out and talk to this person.
Right.
Doesn't matter
I
what the
really-
lapse of, sorry to interrupt. It doesn't matter what lapse of time it's been. If I have been that decent person in their life, chances are they're going to take the call or the question.
Right, yeah. I think, you know, founders are leaders, and so they often tend to forge relationships with other leaders in their fields more easily. So for me, that's sort of like the easier part, but actually I found it really helpful that you view, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but like you view your network as actionable, as part of your message, as almost part of your startup. So every little problem in the startup, whereas I might internalize it or make it something like on my to-do list, well, actually it could be something that is actionable for your network as well as just internally.
So,
yeah, that's really helpful.
Talking about the endorphins, like, if you're a runner, there's the runner's high, after you run, because all the endorphins that like get released from running. There's a helper's high. You ask why people mentor, because they want to help. They want to be helpful. You are giving people like a dopamine hit when you ask them for help. And then when you tell them what you did with that help, you're reinforcing that dopamine hit. Like, give them the dopamine hit. Let them release those endorphins, by asking. Like, people want to be sought out for that kind of stuff. But ask the person who, like, chances are they know the answer to this. Or chances are they've experienced this. This is something that's in their bailiwick. That's again going, the who, what, and how. Like, who, like what's, who's the person most likely to answer this problem? What do I know about them? Yeah, they can really answer this. And oh, gee, they're not on their first vacation in 15 months. So this is a good time for me to ask them something, right? Or their company is not going public tomorrow. So, or the company is going public tomorrow. Maybe I'll wait a couple of weeks to ask them the question. Yeah, that's, and then the how is, are they the type who want to jump on a Zoom or take a text or an email or a phone call or whatever it is?
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome. What else we got, Bonnie?
Oh, I was going to remind people to be respectful of people's time. I'm friends with a lot of investors, and they come out and visit mostly on holidays when it's a longer weekend. And they show me some of the emails that they get from founders saying, well, since it's a long weekend and you're not doing anything, or, please, this is what I'm doing and blah, blah, blah. I need your answer we're looking for whatever, 250K. I need your answer by close of business. Be respectful of who people are and their time as well. Get to know them first. Yes, these are really, I've seen them. Create
that urgency to tell them that they're not a friggin' ATM, first off. Right. They invest based on, besides size of market, how you're solving it. I mean, when I say size of market and how you're solving the problem, that's about who you are and your problem solving skills, and then who you are and coming with a creative solution, right? It's not like, oh, it's a big market, if I don't get in right now, thank God they created this urgency so I can write the check, right? I don't know who suggested startups do that, but I don't know any VC who answers those emails in a positive way.
Of course. It's a lack of respect.
No. Oh, it's, well,
I don't want to work with that person. And we know it's a long-term relationship, sure.
Well, we would know that, but I don't, like I said, I don't know who's giving out that shitty advice to founders. That, hey, do this, create urgency. Tell them you're, no, that's not the way it works. Like crazy. But yeah, time is really, I mean, you got to respect people's relationships. You got to respect their reputation in terms of what they have built up. And when I say that, those things go hand in hand. They make an introduction and you fall flat on it. You've now tarnished their reputation with that person they've made, right? You've tarnished their reputation and affected their relationship. But the real big thing, and Bonnie hit on it, is time. Time is your non-renewable resource. You can't give it back. And that's why I'm really adamant on, when you reach out to people, like, tell them what you need and what you're looking for. let them in some ways decide. I mean, suggest coffee if they've got it on their website. I love to meet people for coffees on Thursday at this coffee shop. Then you're like, great, I'm planning to come on Thursday to the coffee shop where you check email and, assuming you're still doing that Thursday, I'll come in and drop in there to meet you and ask you this. But it's their time and their resources and their, reputation. Ask your question and let them guide you on how they're going to give you the answer. Oh.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that point.
Oh, I love that point because I'm like, like people who suggest this networking, reach out, suggest for coffee, suggest a location and a time. And I'm like, that email will end up in the trash if it ends up in my inbox. It'll just be a no.
I know. I think if there's one positive thing that came out of the lockdowns is that people stopped with that. Can we meet for coffee?
Oh no, a friend of mine got one of those.
Oh, sorry.
In the middle of a pandemic in London, and she's like, "Really? Are you crazy? Your company looks interesting, and maybe you've got some projects you could hire me on. Maybe we could meet for coffee." Poor young, newly, out of school person, and someone gave them some well-meaning, hey, just reach out to company you're interested in, tell them you're interested, and suggest that you could meet the founder for coffee.
Oops, my bad. Sorry.
No. Show why they want to talk to you. I'll give you advice and stop what they're doing and solve your problem. Kira, you came off mute.
Yes, I wanted to ask you something that I have my publishing hat on it when I talk to clients about this, but I know when it's a founder conversation, it's a little bit different. And you alluded to it earlier about it can't just be the founder publishing the book about being the founder and building up his or her social network just for the sake of having it. But yet, if I'm putting a book proposal together, if there's not going to be a self-published work, I want to have those larger numbers. So how can I urge somebody to work smart in raising their social media numbers without telling them, yeah, I need you to be a celebrity? Because honestly, that helps me to sell a book, but I do it in a way that's smart. So any insight you have is very helpful for me.
I mean, this is one of those things that, like if someone is going after I think it's one of those things that aspiring authors don't realize is that, short of being Stephen King or the Bible, I figured those are probably the Stephen King books and the Bible, the only books that do not need marketing, like the author to market. And I don't think they realize how important that is and that they need to build it and show a publishing house that they have it, they understand it. But this is also, I think, whereas if it's founders, they need to think about the intentionality of it, as opposed to, I don't believe, I had someone recently ask me about the social media numbers. And they had been told they needed to hit certain follower count. I said, who told you that? And then they told me, and I'm like, yeah, an agency that wants to tell you their services to get your count up. That's who told you that, right? So I think we understand, who is actually telling you these things? But I know from the publishing houses that saying that I will do these things after you get the deal with a publishing house, that's not going to fly. They need to have it. So I think they need to come up with a plan. They need to come up with a plan that is sustainable. Whether you want to write a book or not, what are the ways you're going to do these things? And this is also between thinking about how the social platforms work, what gets SEO, what gets traction, but also what's sustainable, what's sustainable for you in terms of actually feeding that machine. And what does your network want from you? So, if I take LinkedIn as an example, okay, I know I know what their algorithm does, but I also know what my network does. So I have to I keep both of those things in mind when I post. So I post early in the morning. I post once a day. It is some of it now that's better for the algorithm, but it's also my network. They like things first thing in the morning. And guess what? After Wednesday, not so much.
Yeah, that's very helpful. What does your network want from you?
Right. So I think it's both. It's like keeping the technology, but also right. What is it, like, when is your network responsive to you? What kind of posts paying attention to that? And then what are the type of posts and content that relate to the subject matter or is somehow relevant to what the book proposal is? But I am entirely skeptical of anyone who's like literally someone said to me, oh, they told me they couldn't I shouldn't submit a book proposal to a publishing house if I have less than, 20,000 Twitter followers. And I'm like, okay, where did that number come from? Or I need at least this number on Instagram. I'm like, okay, but if you read anything on Instagram, you're told to dump followers all the time because your old followers may be inactive and that affects your engagement. So I'm like, who's the source for that kind of information? But I think they have to show that they are using it and they're savvy about it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I end up talking about this a lot more than just their content because it does matter.
Oh yeah, it does. If you can't show that they're not going to market your book. You are the, like I said, unless you're Stephen King or the Bible, you're marketing your own book.
You just did it.
It's like, someone said to me in a clubhouse, they said, I'm looking forward to the day when I can stop marketing my book. And I just started laughing hysterically. I'm like, you're not Stephen King, you're not the Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. Well, Bonnie, I gotta get over to Brooklyn.
I know, and I thank you for giving us this extra time. I know you're always busy. Thank you so much.
Absolutely my pleasure. Total joy to be here and to reconnect with people. Kira, awesome to see you. And hopefully the advice and guidance and everything was helpful. Bonnie, Mac, thank you.
Thank you
so very much. And yeah, I just want to say, I would like to say I borrowed this line from the email signature line from someone who sent me something over the past 15 months. So my sign off is stay positive and test negative.
That's a good one. Thank you so much. I want to write that one down.
Yeah, stay positive, test negative. All right, everybody, take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Mac. Thanks, Bonnie. I really appreciate this.
I said, I was telling a friend who couldn't make it because he wasn't feeling well. I said, oh, Kelly's going to come up with some zinger and you'll miss it, but I will share it with you. So I will share it with you. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful holiday weekend.
Do we still have weekends? Oh, I guess we do now.
You know what? I have to say it because I have a calendar which tells me it's going to be Memorial Day. So, maybe it's just lip service, but I go for it anyway.
Yeah, I like it. All right. Take care, everyone.
And bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.